Now let us see the kind of population that France had that time. In 1715, the population of France was about 23 million, and by 1789, at the time of revolution, the population increased to 28 million. So there was an increasing population, but the increasing population which was demanding the food grains, it could not pace accordingly. It could not match up. The production was not going at the same pace, at the same level, especially where their main staple crop was bread. They needed bread, and this was not plentifully available for them. So in this case, whenever the production of the agricultural was going on, the agricultural production, when it got affected because of the pest attack, because of the drought, because of the snowfall, then the output was so less that it could not meet the demand. So thereby, the production, when it was so less, the prices of the commodities used to shoot the sky. And at the same time, when the prices of the food commodities were increasing, the labor's wages were very much fixed. They were not increasing according to the prices. So thereby, there was a lot of problem in acquiring the food items from the market. Okay, now let us see the growing middle class in France. What was happening with the growing middle class? The growing middle class in the 18th century was consisting of those people who were engaged in number of business activities. There were traders, there were educated people, they were wealthy, they were manufacturers, and all these people, they emerged in the society very strongly, and they were very intelligent in questioning the authority of the king and the privileged classes of the first estate and the second estate. And there emerged from the educated class, some philosophers emerged. Like three important people have been mentioned, like John Locke, who is the author of a book called The True Treatise of the Garment, Mr. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who is the author of The Social Contract, and Mr. Montesquieu, who wrote a book called The Spirit of the Laws, which mentioned about the presence of the three institutions between the legislature, executive, and judiciary. This was proposed by different philosophers and different authors of that time who educated this entire to the third estate. So the ideology of these three people, it began to spread among the common people, and they came to know. And the entire fact, when these people have written, it became a hot topic of discussion for everyone. It was discussed in saloons, it was discussed in coffee shops, it was discussed in every place, and they started a feeling to question the authority of privileges that was granted to the first estate and the second estate. So thereby, it created a kind of anger, it created a kind of protest among the people to question these authorities. Now let us see exactly what happened on the day when the outbreak of a revolution occurred. Now, as the condition of the society you know very well. Now what was happening with the third estate you know very well. Now anyhow, when Louis XVI came up, he need to recover the treasury. It has to be filled up somehow. So he came up with a proposal of imposing the new taxes. And for imposing the new taxes, the general behavior or the general rule here, it is that he has to call up the general estate. That means the assembly of the France has to be called upon for a meeting where all the representatives of the three houses and the three estate will come here and they'll attend. And the usual practice or the general law here, it is that the proposal of the new taxes will be put forward before the three houses, and they have to agree for that. So thereby, this meeting was called upon on 5th of May 1789. And the last meeting that was held in the Estate General of the France was in the year 1614. And now this meeting that was going to be held, it was after a gap of 175 years. So after a gap of 175 years, these people are now going to gather. So the representatives belonging to the first estate, they came, and there were about 300, and all of them, they occupied the chairs on one side. The representatives representing the second estate, they came, and they were about 300, and they occupied the chairs on the other side. So both sides were occupied by first and the second estate sitting on the chair. The third estate, when they too were invited to come and attend this estate general meeting, here particularly some poor peasants and the women were not allowed, and only the representatives, about nearly 600, were allowed to enter. And all these people, they were accommodated behind, like half of them was standing behind the first estate and the other half were standing behind the second estate. So like this, the entire estate general got filled up for the new venture that was planned by Louis XVI. So anyhow, the practice here is that before, when it was put forward that the bill has to be passed on, the voting has to be done. And the usual practice is that each house will be having only one vote. The 300 representatives will have only one vote, whether it is a first estate, second estate or a third estate. And Louis XVI thought the same practice would be implemented and the bill can be easily passed out, because the first estate and the second estate will be always in this favor, because they are not going to pay any taxes. The burden is going to be on the third estate. So thereby he felt it will be passed out. But when the proposal was put forward, then the questions were raised by the third estate asking that no, this policy will not be accepted, and thereby they demanded that each person should be given one vote. Every individual they asked, every representative they asked one vote, like today's democratic system they have got, like one person, one vote, one value. So thereby here also the same system they demanded, that one person and one representative will be or should be given one vote, and one vote should be valued as one. They demanded this, and the demand put forward by the third estate was rejected by the king, saying that it is not possible. So thereby, as it was rejected, these people disappointedly they left the estate general. They walked out of this meeting, as usually it happens even today also. The opposition, when they are not happy with the responses of the governing party or the governing people, they usually walk out in protest. So in this case also, these people, they walked out of the estate general. The third estate, when they walked out of the National Assembly or the National Estate General, these people on 20th of June, they once again gathered just outside this estate general. There was an indoor tennis court. All the third estate people, they gathered here, all the representatives, they gathered here, and they declared themselves as the National Assembly. They were very particular that they wanted to do this. So thereby they declared themselves as the National Assembly, and after declaring themselves as the National Assembly, they took the oath. They took the oath that they will not leave that place, they will not disperse from that place until they draft a constitution for the country. So they promised to themselves that they are going to prepare at any cost a kind of a constitution that France is required. So all these people and all those representatives who were sitting in this tennis court and they took this oath, this incident is famously called as the tennis court oath. And they were all led by the two important leaders. One is Mirabeau and the other one is the Abbé Sieyès. These two people, they read the generals, they prepared the pamphlet, they started up telling to the people that how important it is to question the authority of the privileged classes. So like this, an institution was prepared, and the protest was, one side was happening here in Paris, and there in the countryside, all the people, out of a fear that the king has hired some kind of army people to attack on them and to kill on them, the kind of a fear. Like, you can see an image right now that I'll be showing you up. This image shows that clearly the fear among the people has widespread from the cities to different places. There are different spots where there was no effort at all or no concern at all, but some of the areas are there where you can see the arrows, that how it is widespreading. So like this, the revolution broke out. The people attacked all the government offices, they attacked the noble lords, they attacked the feudal lords, and they broke into the offices. They looted the hoarded grains, they looted the bakery, and lot of chaotic condition was going on throughout France. So unable to get a control over all these, finally Louis XVI agreed to be a constitutional monarch. Okay, right. This National Assembly that has drafted its constitution by 1791. We all know well, these people, they worked out of the Estate General, and they prepared and they promised to themselves that they are going to draft a new constitution, and that was done by 1791, a span of 2 years that was taken up. And based on this drafting of the constitution, based on this drafted constitution, the powers of the monarch Louis XVI was quite limited, and all the powers were divided among the three institutions according to the suggestions given by Montesquieu. It was divided between the legislature, executive and judiciary. The same system was also adapted in the 13 colonies of America who got their independence from the British. So the same system was adapted here, that they'll be having a legislature, an executive and judiciary. And what all this drafted constitution did is, with its citizens, that it divided the citizens into two categories, one as the active citizens and the other as the passive citizens. Active citizens were all those who were above 25 years of age and who were paying the taxes. All those individuals and all those men particularly who were paying the taxes equal to 3 days of the labor's wages. So such kind of amount who was paying as a tax to the government, all such men were given the right to vote, and all those people were considered as active citizens. What these active citizens will do is that they'll elect the team of electors, and these electors will indirectly elect the members of National Assembly, and this National Assembly will be consisting of the members of legislature, executive and judiciary. So with regard to active citizens, it is like this. When it comes to passive citizens, all those individuals who do not pay the taxes and all those individuals who comes under 25 years of age, and women were not granted any kind of independence. Right. This National Assembly, which has drafted the Constitution in the year 1791, also declared the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. You can see the list here, which I am playing right now, which consisted of the right to life, the freedom of speech, the freedom of opinion, the freedom of expressing their opinion, equality, fraternity, all are mentioned in that list. So thereby this declaration has made all the third estate people so strong that they can question the authority of all the privileged classes. At the same time, to instigate every common individual of the France, especially those who were not educated, the men and women who could not read and write, for them they started up using the symbols. Now you can see the picture of the symbols that were used by the French people, which contained the symbol of a broken chain, a winged woman, and many other, like a bundle of rods, which was prescribing many things. All such kind of things were used by France and the people of the third estate, the middle class, to instigate and involve everyone in this effort. After abolishing the monarchical system, and when Louis XVI has agreed to be a constitutional monarch, he did not kept quiet. He was just acting in front of all the National Assembly as if he's agreed with the condition. But secretly he made a kind of contacts with countries like Austria and Prussia and the neighboring countries. Even the neighboring countries of France were worried that similar kind of revolutions may occur in their country. Then they felt that all these has to come together and they need to pressurize, they need to attack them. So once this news was heard by the National Assembly, they immediately made a declaration of war on Austria and Prussia in the year 1792, as they raised a war. So with the declaration of the war on Austria and Prussia by the National Assembly, all the people, they volunteered themselves and they were very passionate to be a part of this war, and they engaged themselves. Anyhow, the war went up, they won it. And it was possible because, the patriotic songs, the involvement of the people, as if this is a war of the prestige, this is a war that they need to fight for themselves and all that, to free themselves. Everyone got involved, and to instigate them and to fill them with the passion and to fill them with the zeal and to fill them with the patriotic feelings. Merciless, a kind of a song, was composed by Roger D. Leslie, who wrote this song, and it became very famous and very common song among all the French, and this finally became even the national anthem of the France. So anyhow, the war led by these people, all the revolutionaries, it brought many economic difficulties. People suffered again. They were going through a number of problems. So thereby, when all the men were involved in the war, there on the other side, women, they took up the jobs. They took up all the frontline jobs which men were supposed to be doing, as they have to replace this. Women took up the jobs. Women were doing all the activities, and it was realized that there is still much is needed to be done so as to continue this effort. And thereby, there in France, people began to form some political associations out of all these. Many political associations were formed, and out of all these associations, a very important association that was formed was called as the Jacobins. The Jacobin club was very famous out of all these political clubs that was formed in France. And this Jacobin was actually, the name was derived from the Saint Jacob convent which was running in France. So the people, they joined this, and this Jacobin club, the political club that was formed, it was the main leader who was leading this was Robespierre Maximilian. He was the one who was actually leading up this Jacobin club. And the members of this political club were all belonging to the lower strata of the society, like the shopkeepers, like the leather makers, the bakers, the laborers, the servants. Every low class were the members of this Jacobin club. And to be very patriotic in appearance, very patriotic in their feelings, these people, they even rejected the knee-lining kind of a dress, and these people, they adapted a new dress, which was a pant with the red color, where I can show you a picture right now. You can see the picture. This picture tells us very clearly the kind of dressing that was adapted by these people, and just to inspire all the French people that these kind of activities to be done in the entire country. So the National Assembly that formed here was once again into a trouble, and now the Jacobins club, which was under the control of Maximilian, Robespierre Maximilian, he has taken over the conditions. So in the year 1792, on August 10th, this Jacobins political club, which took over the conditions, has stormed into the palace. They made a plan, and on this day, according to the plan, they entered into the palace. They killed all the guards, and they took the king as a hostage. They kidnapped him for several hours, and later the National Convention, the National Assembly that got elected, they imprisoned the king, and they posed a kind of a blame on him, a kind of a crime on him as a treason, or as a person, one who is a traitor, were put on him, and he was put into the jail. And fresh elections were held, and this time when the elections were held, now the previous rule of active citizens and the passive citizens was removed, and this time the elections were held, and all the men, I'm specifically again pointing out, all the men who were about 21 years of age were given the right to vote, but again women were not given. So this time the elections were held, and this time a new convention was formed. Now you see, a series of incidents are changing up the kind of rule in France. First it was ruled by the monarch, so monarchical regime went up. The monarch, agreeing to the conditions, agreed to be a constitutional monarch, where the National Assembly made to do so. And now, after the National Assembly and after the Jacobins club has taken over the condition under the Maximilian Robespierre, the conditions have changed, and a new convention has come up, a new convention has formed. And this new convention, which got established on 21st of September, here monarchical regime has ended up and France has become a republican country, a complete republican country which will be taken over by the government of Maximilien Robespierre. And on 21st of January 1793, under the charges of treason, under the charges of traitor, under the charges of cheating a country, Louis XVI was executed. He was guillotined and he was executed publicly, and later, after a few days, even his wife Mary Antoinette also was executed.